Hello again, Steve here with a few comments on a video I wanted to do along the lines of, will America survive Trump? Or for that matter, will the world survive Trump? It's a good question, and I don't really like to get into politics very much anymore because I find politics in general. I once heard somebody say what politics is many ticks. It's it's deplorable for the most part, I find. Although, many people are caught up in the conversation about politics. So I actually kind of enjoy the conversation sometimes because allows me to see where people are coming from. And sometimes I can tell a lot about people within a matter of seconds as to what their political opinions are, because very often the stripe shows up very quickly. Now, before anybody thinks that I'm somehow for or against one person, another person, whether whether I'm on this bot or that bot, I don't vote. In fact, I actively encourage people not to vote. And you can look back at some of my videos as to why not. But nevertheless, I'm not going to delude myself to believe that people are not going to vote. And if I know that people are voting, I would hope that they vote for somebody who's at least somewhat sane and is not going to sentence me to death tomorrow. In other words, whatever other people are doing, as long as they're not making a worse mess of it, at least that's, I can live to speak another day, kind of thing. But I think the question, there's a lot of course, misinformation going around, and people on both sides believe that there's fake news. Both sides of any spectrum, right? Anybody who's skeptical is going to see that as a potentiality, and to me, Trump is a scapegoat for what's really going on, because what's really going on, as I see it, is that there's been this creep of socialism, and socialism is the opposite, or the antithesis of freedom, because freedom comes back to the individual, right? You cannot build a healthy group of people without addressing the needs of the individuals, because the group does not exist in an absence of the individuals. So the individual focus would be the basis of a just society. But socialism is the opposite of that. Socialism says that the group supersedes the individual, which right away is an insane approach, because it's completely illogical. It makes no sense, and the historical evidence shows that it doesn't work. It's abysmal every time it's tried, and every time it's ramped up. Things always get worse and never better. The socialist utopian dream is, we're just one piece of legislation away from getting it all right, but it gets added and it never works. It always makes it worse. Coming back to Trump then, you see, Trump, the attack by, okay, I'm going to try to come at it, I should have organized this a bit better, but to come at it a little bit clearer, everybody's in a game in life, right? Years ago, when I was in my car dealership, I had a car dealership, and I would use cars, and there was a wholesaler guy would come to me, and he'd have a package of cars, right? He'd say, there's a couple of cherries in here, there's a couple are okay, and there's a couple of junk. You got to take them all. Are you a player? And that didn't mean did I want to take them for that money. It means, am I in the game with him? Like, can we do something? Can we work? Can we throw some numbers around? Can we get the game going and see if we can make a deal? And if we can't make a deal, well, then that's when the game's over, right? But while we're in that deal, it's a game going on. I'm a player, right? And everybody's playing some kind of game, right? The question is, what are we playing? Are we producing? Are we adding to the pot? Are we adding to the group? or are we consumers from the group? See, we know that babies are consumers. I mean, if you have a baby in your household, the baby doesn't wash the dishes, the baby doesn't clean the toilet, doesn't sweep the floor, doesn't do anything. It shits in its pants and wants to be fed. So the baby is a consumer. But at a certain point, that baby becomes an input, right? Now, when you have a socialist state, so when you have the family is a form of socialism because there's members of that family who are contributing to the pot of the whole. And I don't mean just money, but work in, right? And there's those who are consuming out. Everybody's consuming, but talking about the net in versus out. So somebody is sweeping the floor every day. They're also dirtying the floor, but they're cleaning it up after themselves, and they're also cleaning for everybody else. So that's a net producer to the floor cleaning place. There's somebody who's cleaning their own ass, and they're cleaning the ass of the baby, so they're a net production in ass cleaning activities, right? Same with bringing home the beef and bringing home whatever. They're also consuming. So if you look at a larger socialist society that gets developed in a nation state, there's also those who are consuming, yes, and also adding to. But the question is, are there any who are adding more than they're taking out? And are those who are taking out more than they're adding? And what we find if we look at this in especially America, where this whole Trump thing is going on, is that the voters for Trump are the net in ones. They're the ones who give in more than they take out. And the other people who are going crazy about Trump are the ones who take out more than they give. Now, is it any surprise when America was set up? It was set up in such a way that only certain people voted. It just so happened that that's a parallel to who contributes now. Isn't it interesting how somehow the old folks, they were a little bit politically incorrect, but they actually had it right. In a way, it makes sense, right? You wouldn't have, once again, coming down to children, that's fine, but you wouldn't have a social group where only a few people contributed, and everybody just mooched off them. Finally, you'd say, hang on a second here. Pull your weight. Do something about it. So this is not about Trump versus the world. It's about those who produce and continue to produce and adding to the pot. And they're seeing more and more and more and more is being demanded by those who mooch off them. It happens to be men, the only group who contribute to the pot, and most specifically white men. And it's no surprise, I guess, this may sound politically incorrect, but it's no surprise that this particular group, of all groups in America, white men, are the ones who can be shat on by the media. Right? You can't get away with saying women this and women that. You can't get away with saying this minority group, that minority group. You got to tiptoe around them. But as soon as it comes to white men, you can just call them a bunch of Nazis. And that's perfectly fine. Right? Nazi is a very derogatory term for some people. But you can just call them Nazis. And white supremacists and nationalists. You can have black nationalists, you can have Israeli nationalists that build walls around their building, their country and everything, and you can have Black Lives Can Matter. You can have La Raza, the Hispanic racial group. You can have prides too, right? You can look it up. You can have Black Pride. You can have Gay Pride. You can have Feminist Pride. You can have Asian Pride. You can have Hispanic Pride. You can have all the Native American Indian Pride. You can have all these prides, but as soon as you have white pride, Nazi. It's really hilarious, and it would be more hilarious if it wasn't actually true, but it's true, right? But it makes sense why the feeding groups, the net consumers, go completely bonkers over Trump. They don't realize they're being fed. They're being fed where we're being fed fake news, and my okay. Well, I'll come back to that later. But the the well, I'll go there right now for a moment. The way we can tell, because a brother of mine was asking recently. There's a conservative political sort of a primaries. They don't call it primaries here. It's a leadership convention for their upcoming election, and it's a whole panel of conservatives who are running for this to be the prime minister candidate kind of thing down the road. And he was wondering which one he should, because he's very conservative. And I told him, I said, well, just look who the media is attacking. If it's the conservative side, right? If it's the conservative side, the best candidate is the one they're attacking the most. If you're a leftist and there's a panel of people running for their party, we'll just look for the one who the media supports the most. Because the media is part of the complex, like they're given a license under a socialist system, so they're going to support socialism. That's to understand the media is to understand that they are socialist in their nature because they have a license under a socialist system and they're protected by a socialist system. In the so-called Canada, there's actually a whole media channel which is funded to the tune of like $1 billion per year. It is a socialist hornpipe. That's all it is. So just look at who they're attacking, and that's the one who's speaking more truth, because socialism is all about lies, right? Because it denies reality, which is the individual, and it supports the fiction called socialism, which doesn't exist. You cannot talk to a society, you cannot talk to a country, you cannot talk to a group. You can only talk to individuals, right? There will be people who say, I represent the group. Well, where's the group present? Right? You cannot represent which doesn't exist. To represent, you have to at least acknowledge that there's a present. But there's no present, right? It's just all nonsense. It's all lies. It's hard to see this at first, but it is quite a challenge. So what's going on is not an issue of Trump. Trump is a scapegoat that's being used because he's there and he's the whipping boy of the day. But really, there's a great deal of fear by the gamers who game off of people's production. Because all it is about wealth transfer, right? You have this group that's paying in all the time, and there's that horde who's sucking from it. And they want more of it, because any spoiled child wants more candy. And it's exactly the same thing. When people become dependent on it, they become entitled, a sense of entitlement, right? So everybody's playing a game. It's whether it's a negotiation game or it's a coercive game. And the political system is a coercive game. So you have people who are being extorted under the threat of being shot or imprisoned that they don't pay in, but they're paying in more than they take out. And there's those who are maybe paying in, a lot of times not paying in, but they're taking out more and they want more, right? So the only thing you can do is you can demonize those who don't want to pay in anymore. And a lot of men are getting fed up, really fed up, with having been abused for so many years by the whole system. And that's what's happening. So the question is, will the world survive, or the America survive Trump? Well, I think it's a silly question, because it's really got nothing to do with Trump. Trump is an opportunist, and he's very good at what he does. He's been very successful at so many things. I don't know if he can overcome the momentum of what's going on, but it won't be Trump who wins if his side wins. It'll be men who have shown themselves to be the ones who create most of the stuff in the world, the wealth, the engineering, the technology, the political systems, the justice systems. It's all pretty much all run by men anyways. And they're the ones who are producing. So when enough men decide that enough's enough, it's over. It's over. And that so-called Trump side wins. And I think there's a case to be made that will happen, because men are the ones who produce, and the numbers are there. I'm not making this up. So if they want to produce on a freedom side of things, they will as well. Steve here again, great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.